The kick and bass is one of the sections that most people are going to have issues with when it comes to their song. And I feel like a lot of it can be solved with just proper sound design, proper theory. However, you are the person in a rectangle room or a square room and you have not treated the room acoustically. And if everything I'm saying is going, what are you talking about, bro? Then you have no right to say whether a bass is good or not. And if you're working on your bass, you're fucking blind, especially if you are using monitors. So if you're going to be mixing a kick and bass and you don't have your room treated, what you want to do is get yourself a pair of decent headphones and use those when you're mixing your kick and bass. Because a lot of the times when people think someone said my kick and bass aren't mixed well, they think that it's an EQ thing. They think it's a saturation thing. They think it's a level thing. A lot of the times it could just be the bass is messy and all over the place, but you just can't tell. And this is because in certain rooms, you're going to have these weird phenomenons. For example, if a kick sounds like this, in your room, if you haven't treated it, it's going to sound like boom. Like a damn bomb went off, bro. So keep that in mind as we approach this. But again, if you understand the theory, just a bit, then you can get something that sounds decent. The first thing I want to talk about is the kick and bass volume. This is a big one, and honestly, it's going to depend on the context, but I know you don't like those kind of answers, and I want to give you guys something that you can always do that will guarantee at least that the levels aren't too far off. When it comes to the kick, you always want to anchor the kick. It's going to be the loudest thing in the song, around there. Some things can be a little louder for sure, but a lot of times the kick is the strongest, loudest thing. I always want you guys to anchor your kick at -6. Okay, you can be a little above it, you can be a little below it, but whatever. You're gonna anchor the kick at -6 dB. Like so. From there, I have a kick that you can see it's kind of panned to the left a little. So from there, I always use the utility, and I always recommend people use the utility as well and collapse either to the left or to the right. Why? Because when you have a kick, sometimes you might have a stereo image to the kick. There might be an effect in there that the sound designer decided to do. But the thing is that a lot of the times it might not work in context with your song. So if you feel like there's something odd with the kick, you can never go wrong with collapsing to the right or left. Okay, when you have stereo, you have a left and a right channel. There's 2 channels, and most modern samples are going to be stereo. However, you can choose the left or right channel, and if you can tell this kick, it's a little out of phase. You can see this line. There's like a little line there. That means the left and the right are different volumes. In fact, that's why when I turn this off, the left side is louder and then the right side is quieter. And you can see it here too. Now, this happens because sometimes when I'm making a kick, I might use like analog plugins that try and emulate cassette tapes and stuff. So this occurs. Sometimes it's wanted, sometimes it's not, but I always recommend, you know what? I don't know what I was smoking that. You know what? Like, let's just collapse it to the left side. And there we go. We have a stable volume. From there, the length of the kick is very important. And this is something a lot of people do not pay attention to. I tell people use LFO tool or kickstart in order to see the kick. Okay. You can also use an oscilloscope. But again, most people have LFO tool or kickstart. If you're a beginner and you don't have those, then get kickstart. It's like $14 and you can use the waveform display to see it. But from here, we can see how long the kick is. We can see how the kick looks. We don't want the kick looking junky. We want the kick looking straight and solid and strong and girthy. Okay, so from here, we know we end at the halfway mark with the kick, and that's what we want in some kicks, depending on the bass. A lot of times, you're not going to mess with the EQ on your kick until you have somewhat of a bass going. So that way you can dictate whether you want to add more pump to the kick or reduce from it. Bass will always be around the volume of -12 to -6. When in doubt, try and put it a little bit in between those guys. And I promise the kick and bass will sound decent as long as you didn't pick like, Chewbacca sounding bass or kicks. First thing that you always want to do with a kick and bass is you always want to sidechain the kick and bass. You want to move them out of the way. So this is why LFO tool or kickstart is cool, because I can see the kick length and then I can see the bass on how it's going. Okay, from here I can use the sidechain that I have on the bass to reduce and move the bass out of the way of the kick. It's that simple. It literally is. Now, a lot of people will run into trouble because they try and do the frequency split, which is valid. You can do a split, which just means that everything below this frequency, 236, 200, will get sidechain and everything above will be allowed to pass through. And a lot of people fuck that shit up and then they sound like crap. Okay, so a lot of times if you aren't there yet, there is no reason for you to do that. Trust me, it's not going to give you anything that you don't already have. If the song is good, the song is good. You splitting it and trying to flex the bass, the top end of the bass, doesn't matter to people. This already sounds better than most people when it comes to the low end. Now, again, of course, you have to keep in mind that, you know, the bass you have has to be designed properly, and that's for another video. But again, this is why you use good presets, good samples. It's all about your sound selection. It's all about hearing, making sure it sounds good. And if you don't know what sounds good, you go with companies that big artists or small artists or people that you value, trust. Okay, that's the big one. I'm not going to promote my stuff. You guys already know I have my sound design work there, which you guys can use, which I again put my work into. From there, we really want to get everything to just sound on point. So the next thing we want to do is we want to saturate the bass. Assuming that the bass programming and the bass sounds good, we want to saturate the bass. Now, what is this doing? Well, the first thing is saturation is going to provide harmonic frequencies to a sound. And the best way to say it is if you ever said, hey, Sam, how can I get a sound to sound fat as fuck? Then I would say saturated, John, and don't ever say that again. But that's the point. Because, again, saturation provides harmonic frequencies. And if you don't understand what harmonic frequencies means, let's just say there's this guy here and someone, he makes a baby. That baby has the genetics of that guy, and we know it's going to look like that guy, and for some reason that's a good thing. But the point being, it's influenced by that guy. So this harmonic frequency saturation is influenced by the sound you have, which creates frequencies that are good, that sound good for that one sound. Now, a lot of times, sometimes you might get unwanted ones, and we'll talk about that in a sec. But the best way I can always explain some saturation to someone to beef shit up is you get a, then you distort it, and then we get rid of the highs, the unwanted frequencies. Look how we're at the same volume and you think, oh man, that sounds fat. That sounds louder to you already. That's what people mean about fatness. They're like, oh shit. And that just adds harmonic frequencies, which if I were to show you an image of that, it's just more frequencies that are being made out of a single frequency or out of the fundamental of your sound. Bye-bye. It really is that simple when it comes to saturation. And from there, the different flavor you pick, the way it does it differently. Now, we don't want to be blowing smoke. Obviously, we don't want to overdo it. We want to light a fire and stay warm. We don't want to burn down the forest. Use anything. You can use the Ableton one. You can use the saturator from BlackBox. This is where saturation is like a flavor. You pick which one you like, and that usually will entail you having a certain sound. And this is where I tell people, you know what? Who gives a shit? Just buy what you can afford or buy what you like, and that will create your sound over time. And a lot of people will say, how do you know you overdid saturation? Said, I'm like, because you can fucking hear it. Are you deaf? So again, but again, if you guys are on monitors and you're in a badly treated room, you're going to hear boom, boom. You're never going to hear the saturation. So make sure that when you're working on bass, you use headphones. Okay. If you want to listen to me, anything I have to say, you think I'm crazy, at least listen to me on that. Use headphones to mix your bass. You will hear everything. Boost on the bass. Now, personally, me, I like to use analog bass EQs, and I'll tell you why. And when I see the Ableton EQ like this, which we're going to talk about what I'm doing there, this is very free. I get that. But I know that I don't know what the fuck I'm doing. So I don't know where to boost. So the cool thing with analog EQs, like this one, the Pensado one, is that, as you can see, it's giving me certain sections to fucking cut and boost, okay? And it's saying 160, so I'm like, you know what? Let's give it a chance, 160. So I'll boost, and if it sounds good, it sounds good, man. It sounds good. Why question it, you know? The other cool thing about the Pensado EQ is that it offers pre-1, pre-2, which are preamps. Preamps will help dictate or influence the frequency of the sound. And the cool thing about them, and I can show you guys this so you can kind of get an idea of what I'm talking about here. Preamps will influence the sound like this. Think of it as an EQ that is applied to the sound as it's being pushed. Now, it's so much more than that, but that's the basic layman terms I can explain it. Some people like him, some people don't. I mean, a big producer named Tycho, he loves preamps. The best way it got explained to me, where I was like, is someone said it just makes life a little easier, assuming that the preamp you're using makes sense. For instance, this one cuts all the lows and then it boosts here and then it does this. So a lot of people be like, man, when I use this analog thing, it makes stuff sound fat. It colors the sound because the profile of the EQ, the sound coming through it, is something like this, and that's why they get what they want. So that's why, again, preamps. So I like the Pensado EQ for that. I'll leave an affiliate link if you guys like it somewhere, or like just a link for it. But I use that just to boost 160. And again, I use it because I hate choices. I hate having to say, oh, do you want to boost between 160, 170, 175, 171.1.25? I don't give a shit. I just want the bass to sound fat. But again, the reason I know it sounds fat is because I can hear the bass. I can sense that. If you can, again, I'm going to repeat this again. Mix your bass on headphones is the best advice I'm ever going to give you for bass and mixing. So we have the kick and bass. Okay, now with this and this, it sounds like this. Then it's shit. Now it's beefy, baby. From here, we have this EQ, and this is what I would call theory, because to be honest, I don't know if this is doing anything. So here, I'm cutting out everything below 36.7. Why? Well, because I'm in the key. Yeah, I already forgot what key I'm in, but the reason for it is this. We have a note frequency chart that we can use, and this note frequency chart is going to tell us the lowest note that our fundamental frequency is going to play. Again, I just showed you guys with the sign what the fundamental is. So if I'm in the key of E and the lowest note I'm going to play is E and I'm not going to go below that, then that means that I'm not going to go below 41.20 with my sub. So the thing here is that I'm shaving off those frequencies so that my speakers focus more on the higher frequencies. You can also think about it like, oh, well, we don't have to deal with all this bullshit, so now we have more room. Thing that was taught to me that's been coming very clutch. Now you can debate, oh, we can hear below 30, feel that, it's very spiritual. Like, again, we know humans can hear 30 hertz and that's it. From there down below, you debate if whether you can feel that or not, but we know that, again, 30 hertz is kind of like the we do that cut for that reason, 36.7. Notice how this never goes below that. The fundamental, which is this big blob. If you can't hear that, you should be able to hear it on headphones. Now you see this cut to hell here. The reason for that cut, again, it's theory. I learned this from John Christian, who is a great producer. I don't know what he's doing nowadays, but he's probably ghost producing. He was that good. Very technical guy. He taught that you look at the kick and you look at the fundamental of the kick, or where it's at its beefiest. You can see this kick I've made has a very strong presence around this area here. Now I'm reducing there to allow room for the kick. It's as simple as that. Now you might be going, but didn't you just fucking sidechain? Exactly, I did. But this is just theory. Again, John Christian taught it, and I was like, you know what? I might as well do it. If it sounds good, it sounds good. If it doesn't destroy anything, it doesn't destroy anything. So again, maybe someone can explain that, but I follow that rule. I look at my kick, I look at how heavy it is, where the sub is located, and I do this reducing, because again, at the end of the day, it's like a puzzle. It's a cat and mouse game between the kick and the bass, and you're trying your best as a producer to say, I want this idea, I want a rolling bass, I want a fat bass, and you're trying to get them to glue and have babies together, which in babies will mean people dancing on the stage. Now from here, you should be done with the processing of your bass. There's other stuff you can do, but again, if I were to talk to anybody and they told me what are things I have to do on the bass every single time, I can tell you this with 100% certainty. Every time you have a bass, you're always gonna sidechain, you're always gonna EQ the bass by removing, and you're always gonna boost somewhere to accentuate the curves of the bass. For instance, if I have a fat belly, I'm not gonna wear a tight ass shirt, so same thing with EQ. You're not gonna highlight the nasty part of a bass. Okay, finally, Volcano 3 is doing something which you shouldn't be doing, but if you ever run into the same issue that I did, you can use. Volcano 3 is a plugin from FabFilter, which I recommend. Someone made fun of me saying it's a Ferrari filter when you can just use the auto filter in Ableton. No, honey, no. Check this out. So what I'm doing with that is I'm filtering the bass so that I can use one of the modulators. Anytime you see modulators, think knob turners. So from here, I can use an LFO, I can use an envelope generator. So I'm gonna do that. And now I can click and drag to the frequency. So it's pretty much, I'm just telling it to open the filter up. Now, if you have a good kick, all you're gonna be doing with the kick is maybe removing a bit of the 500 Hertz area, which is a cardboard boxy fill. And from there, you're going to accentuate the kick anywhere you like. So for instance, this one, I felt like needed more knock, which is around 167 to give it that. If you have everything right and you haven't done anything too wild, then you should be able to use this to just nail the bass. So for instance, this gives me targets to hit. And from there, I'm going to try and hit those targets. It's very, very self-explanatory there. And from there, I can level down. Now, to end the video, I do want to add that I didn't really talk about utilizing a sub. And the reason for that is most of the time I teach my students not to use them because it's another point of error. And if you're using bass lines, which again, if you're making normal dance music like tech house, deep house, trance, anything that isn't dubstep, trap, mid-tempo where you're going to have multiple bass lines going off, a lot of the times you're better off not using a sub if you don't know what you're doing or if you're not in the right space to do it, because it's another point of error for a lot of people. And again, now you're dealing with multiple sounds. Using saws and squares, you should be able to get away with them being the sub. The reason we use subs is because, again, you do stuff to the bass that might deteriorate the low end. And if you saw, we didn't really do anything to get the bass, like reducing the low end. However, I'll make another video in the future where I utilize a sub and explain the theory behind that, but it's around the same thing. The important thing is to have a good idea and to pretty much have the bass sounding decent from the beginning using a good sound. If you're doing a sound where like you want something to groove, you pick a sound that sounds like groovy. It doesn't sound it sounds pop, 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 defined as it is from the synth. If you guys enjoyed this video and you want to support this channel, you can go over to evilsounds.com. You can find all of my sound design work. We do have a Black Friday sale going on right now till Monday. So if you guys want to get some of the packs at 35% off, make sure to check that out. And if you guys want to continue your knowledge further, consider watching this video where I talk about afterlife melodic techniques. I feel like most producers can benefit from them because they can use them in different genres. And I think it's a very cool video to watch. Just get some ideas on stuff you can do a bit differently. But with that being said, you guys take care and you guys have a great rest of your day.